do you need to be a full stack developer? The short answer to this is no. With that said, in my opinion, it's not that black and white. What's up, everyone? AJ, I'm Full Stack Dev Talk here. Today, I want to share my thoughts on the question, do you need to be a full stack developer? The short answer to this is no. With that said, in my opinion, it's not that black and white. When I looked around for other views, I found, surprisingly, that there was a lot of content that advised against learning to be a full stack developer, at least from the get-go. I believe that any amount of knowledge and skills across not just the full stack, but the complete software development lifecycle is going to be advantageous. It will make you, again, in my opinion, a better, more marketable, and employable developer. So context matters here. Am I saying that you need to be a wizard? Is that what they call them nowadays? What do they call them? Ninja? 10x? Let's call them experts. So does that mean you have to be an expert that's able to code and architect solutions across the entire stack? Absolutely not. What I am saying is that you need to have, at the very least, a basic understanding, and better yet, at least base level skill sets in different areas of the stack, whether it's the front end, the back end, the data layer, or nowadays, even parts of the DevOps or the CI/CD pipeline. Before I go any further, for those of you who may not understand what a full stack developer is, I'm going to give you a really high level definition of what a full stack developer is. For the purpose of this explanation, I'm going to speak in the context of web development, although this can apply to any other type of development, whether it's building for native apps and so on and so forth. You know, when you build an application, there are different layers. There's the front end or the client side layer. There is the back end, or the server side layer, and then you have the data layer. Once all of that is done, you heard me refer to it a little bit earlier, there is also the DevOps or deployment, the CI/CD pipeline aspect of software development. That, again, in my experience, is something that you're going to need to have some level of knowledge on if you're going to be working for a company, particularly a large enterprise company. So the front end or client side is the user-facing UI or user interface. And this layer, you're going to find yourself working with different languages or technologies like HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Now, requests from the browser or interactions with the UI will send calls to the server side or the back end. In this layer, you will find yourself working with any number of server-side languages, from JavaScript, Python, PHP, C#, Java, you name it, to handle the requests that are sent there. In addition to that, we have the data layer, and this is where you will work with different databases. There are SQL or NoSQL databases. Some of the technologies there on the SQL side are MySQL, Postgres, or on the NoSQL side, MongoDB. Probably the best analogy out there to help illustrate what I'm explaining here is comparing a web application to a restaurant. So in a restaurant, you have the dining area, and then you have the kitchen, and then you have a large refrigerator or storage area for the food. And the dining area represents the front end, the client side, where your patrons will eat their food. They will place their orders with a waiter or waitress. The waiter or waitress then takes the order to the kitchen, and that represents the request from the browser or from the user sent to the back end. And then in the back end or the kitchen, the food is made, and the cooks or the chefs will handle that order, or the server will handle that request. Now, they will make that food and they will make those dishes from the supplies that they take from the fridge or wherever they store their food. And that is the database layer where you have your information, and the back end will interact with that. And then once they've prepared all of that food, everything that is necessary to fulfill the request, they'll send that back out with the waiter or waitress to serve to the patrons, or in the web application to the client. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a visual of what I'm talking about here. That is essentially how a web application works. I also don't believe that full stack development ends there. I think that there is a wealth of other tools and concepts that you need to be, at the very least, familiar with if you're going to succeed working as a professional developer. There is versioning, the most popular one being Git, although I've worked with technologies like SVN. There's also DevOps, CI/CD pipelines, continuous integration, continuous deployment. This is a suite of tools that help with builds, deployments, load balancing, artifact management, packages. So there's some of you that might be watching this and saying, well, this is too much for any beginner or junior developer to know. And that may be the case, but it may not be, because even the most junior developers where I currently work are required to interact with our mono repo, submitting and reviewing PRs, triggering builds and deployments to different cloud services. So, do you have to know how to be able to architect all that? Absolutely not. But do you need to be able to know how to leverage and use all those tools? Yes, you do. And, that's the message I want to get across here, that, you know, it's not enough to just focus on one area of the stack, in my opinion. Now that I've defined what I feel a full stack developer is, I'm going to share my experience and why it is that I feel you need to learn to be a full stack developer. Now, when I got my first job in the industry, this was in 2010, the company I worked for was just starting a new in-house custom media team. And because it was a pilot, there was really only three of us on the team. There was one creative director, there was a designer, and one developer, which was me. So you can imagine, in that role, I was given designs, and I had to bring those designs to life, so to speak, by developing them. And that involved developing the front end, that involved developing the back end. In that role, I was working on a LAMP stack. That's Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. And not only did I have to code the backend, I had to create the databases, and I also had to manage the servers. So there was also server admin on a Linux server. All of this as a beginner web developer. So fast forward to now, the complexity of being a developer has only increased, and exponentially. Fast forward to now, and my role, I guess, is technically as a front-end developer working with React, but we utilize Next.js as a framework. So that involves working on the back end, being able to send downstream requests to other back-end servers. I don't really do much work on the database layer in my role, but I do a ton of debugging of the application. We have to also manage and our own deployments on our team, and builds and micro applications in our mono repo. So this is why I am adamant that you at least strongly consider learning and understanding full stack development if you're going to be able to pursue a career in what is arguably the most competitive environment that we've ever experienced in this industry. So there you have it, my take on the question of should you be a full stack developer. I'm not sure if I touched on everything I wanted to cover with this topic, but it was taking me quite a long time to get around to making this first video. So I might have just created more questions than answers for you. If that's the case, please post your questions in the comments. I will gladly answer whatever I can to the best of my ability. And let me know what you think of the video. Please be kind. It's my first one, and I'm doing my best. Thanks so much for tuning in. I look forward to creating more content, and I hope that you tune in again to watch my future videos. Until the next one, this is AJ signing out. Cheers.